Hi, Rock and Roll Daycare community. It's Barb. It's Tuesday, which means it's our Tuesday Training Tools Day. Although today kind of feels like a Monday, right? Because we had our long weekend. I hope everyone had a lovely long weekend and having a good start to your week at school. So we are in the month of observation, and we've been taking a couple weeks now to learn more about how we observe, why we observe, and really the importance of all these observations, which we now know um, means it's giving us all our information about children, about our environment, about how we're reacting to things. So an extremely important skill to be focusing on and to continue studying so you can become even stronger observers to help continue to meet the needs of your children. So for our weekly focus this week is going to be objective observation. And what that means and why it's important and how we're going to practice it in our classrooms. Okay. So let's just recap last week. Last week, in our last video, we talked about behaviors. And we highlighted that behaviors means there's a need. It's a child's way of communicating. They're saying something is not right. I can't figure out something. And their response is usually some type of behavior. So it's our job as educators to figure out the why. What is causing this behavior? What is the function? And as an example, we broke down and talked about a specific behavior. We talked about biting, and we looked at the reasons why children bite and the ways we can help in our classrooms and be proactive, and some different teaching practices that we can utilize. And essentially, we also focus that we use our observation. That's what helps direct us to tell us what's going on and helps us to get to the root of the problem. Okay. So today I kind of want to piggyback on that and focus on the type of observation we're using. Okay. So I read your responses from Tuesday Training Tools last week, and I read them every week. And thank you so much for your meaningful responses, because I really appreciate them, and your participation in them. And so the second question asks, like, well, how are you observing right now? Like, what method are you using? And the majority of you, if not all of you, said you're writing your observations in either your journal, the Rock and Roll journal, or a notebook that you're using, and that you share those observations with your teaching team. And I think that's great. I think that's awesome. I was so glad to read that. And that's really the first step, is getting the observations out on paper and having the discussions about them. Okay. And this week, we're going to take it one step further, and we're going to focus on that objective observation and how this differs from subjective observation. Okay. So the two definitions to make it really easy peasy for you is objective observation is stating the facts. It's exactly what you're seeing. Whereas subjective is more of your opinion or assumption about what you're seeing. Okay. So understanding the difference between these two types of observations is so critical when thinking about behaviors and trying to get to that why. Why is it happening? Okay. So let's look at a couple of examples to kind of just like compare the two, and so you can really see the difference and how it can help you with your observations moving forward. So let's first look at a subjective observation. So a subjective observation would be, Felix was so happy when he entered the classroom this morning. Okay, we don't know if Felix was happy. We can only assume, just by, we're kind of placing that opinion on Felix to say he was happy. Like, he didn't tell us he was happy. We're just guessing that based on what we're seeing. The objective observation is to say Felix walked into the classroom smiling and skipping, or with a big smile on his face. So that's stating what you're seeing, but not putting the emotion of he was happy, because we really don't know if he was. Maybe he was smiling because he just kicked someone outside, and that wasn't, he's not, I don't know. So it's, we have to remember that it's like, yeah, it's probably in that situation, a safe assumption to say he's happy because he's smiling. But if we're looking at things objectively, the way we would report that is to say he had a smile on his face, he was skipping, stating exactly what we're seeing. Okay. Or we can link this to our topic last week, which was biting. All right. So an objective, the facts, observation of biting could be Janine was sitting next to Eli. She reached for the book that was in his hand, screamed, and bit him on the upper arm. Okay, so those are things, facts that you saw happen before the behavior. If you were looking at that same behavior and reporting it subjectively or had a subjective observation, it would be more like Janine was mad at Eli because she wanted his book and then bit him. Okay, so you put that emotion with it, even though we don't know if she was mad. Maybe she screamed because she was excited. Maybe she screamed because she felt like screaming because that's what toddlers do. We don't really know. So we want to make sure that when we're doing the observations that they're objective. And one last example. Let's say Timmy and Phoenix were playing and having fun together, and then out of nowhere, Phoenix bit Timmy. Okay, again, that's subjective. Maybe they were having fun, maybe they weren't. And, we don't know if that bite was out of nowhere. To us, it looked like maybe that bite came out of nowhere. But for Timmy, maybe there was a real reason that we didn't see because we were looking at it subjectively. So the objective way to look at that would be Timmy and Phoenix were smiling and running instead of saying playing and having fun together. You saw they were smiling. You saw they were actually running around the circle rug. Timmy stopped, looked at Phoenix, and Phoenix bit him on the hand. Okay. That again would be stating the facts. So when we're observing in our classrooms, it's so important that we are trying to stick to just the facts to help to get to the bottom of that behavior. If we put our opinions or assumptions on the situation, we'll have a harder time getting to the bottom of that behavior or what's happening, truly happening, because our vision is going to be clouded by our own judgment. And this is what we call unconscious bias. It's kind of like a selective observation that we're having, and we're overlooking other information because we're focused on the things that fit only my view, or I'm forming that quick opinion about a situation or a person without being consciously aware of it. So we're gonna dive into this unconscious bias more when we get to the month where our monthly theme is the prepared adult, like looking at our reflections. But essentially, just as an overview, our brains are forming biases by using previous knowledge and experiences from different social situations, attitudes, cultures, stereotypes, emotional reactions, so on and so forth, right? So our own judgments can get in the way when we're not looking at things objectively. And we can do that with the young children a lot because it can look like their behaviors can look like have really different motives if we're not sticking to just the facts. If we're like, oh God, this child always does this, and it's, kind of, it's kind of random, or they're doing it for attention, whatever it is. So it's if there's ever a time that you're feeling really stuck, if a child's repeating this behavior, or you feel like this is just so random, there's no rhyme or reason why this child is, has this behavior, I want you to check your observations and I want you to see what you're writing down. And is it subjective? Are you writing, more opinion-based things, or are you writing what you're actually seeing? And if you are writing more subjective, which, happens, that's kind of just how we think, I want you to start practicing writing exactly what you're seeing. So we can kind of just get past that, like I said, that unconscious bias or that selective observation, and try to get down to like really what's happening so we can help that child. And the great thing about this and practicing this is that's going to help you with all your observations that are related to behaviors or classroom management issues in your classroom, which I know is a big stress for a lot of us. Like, who doesn't? I mean, who's not stressed by behavior? No one wants these in their classroom, right? So this is a really good tool to start to focus on. And if you're thinking about those ABC charts that we talked about last week, again, in that in each column, we're writing down the actual facts that happened. And, not saying, oh, Timmy was sad, or, Eli was annoyed, like we just, or it seemed like, or any of those type of statements are those, the red flag that was subjective, and let me go back and really write down what I actually saw. Okay. So that's the weekly focus, and I would, like I said, just really encourage you to look at your previous observations and then practice it. Just practice it whatever, if you're using the journal, which I hope you are, practice them in your notebook or in the class notebook that you're using, and have conversations with it with either your program specialist, your director, or your teaching team to see if it's helping, and to see if is it challenging for you. Have you never looked at doing observations this way? Is it new? If it is new, like anything, it will take practice, but I promise you it's going to help you really support the children in a more authentic way. And that's our ultimate goal. We want to get to the bottom of whatever, like I said, that behavior is, or that classroom management issue is, so both the child is feeling at peace, and of course that your classroom is running more smoothly without those behaviors present. And this is a great tool to use. So if you have any questions, you know that you can always ask us again, or your program specialist or director. And if you do want to submit one of those behaviors or something going on in your classroom, I'd be happy to again kind of break it down for you on the Tuesday tools and use it as an example. There's a good chance if it's happening in your classroom, it's happening in another classroom at another center. If not now, maybe it will in the future, or it has in the past. And we all want to just be learning from actual experiences so we can apply them appropriately, or at least have the tools in our toolbox to have it when it does come up. Because sometimes these behaviors are inevitable, and we just like to be well equipped with different observation techniques that can help us get to the root of the problem. So that's all I have for today. Any questions, let us know. If not, I will see you next week and hope everyone has a fabulous afternoon. Bye, everyone.